Hey, welcome to study guide number 11. We'll go right down those 12 words, talk about some sentences, talk about the definitions, maybe look at a map of like the Vatican City, talk about the difference between the Catholic religion and the Orthodox religion. Both of those religions are pretty popular in the Balkans, where we're talking about the massacre at Srebrenica, which I hope I'm saying correctly. So let's get into some of the stuff here. The first one, this one's a little bit tough because I got a sentence or two for you here, but it's pronounced systematic. Now in the sentences, I've changed it to systematically, but you can see the definition: done or acting according to a fixed plan or system, methodical. So sometimes systematic can be like kind of evil. We'll talk about it right here. The army went through the town systematically killing whoever they met. So that's just, there's no emotion there. When we get to talking about the Holocaust, I mean, it was a systematic way of killing people. It's just like all business-like, right? No emotion. There was a system to, it comes from system, right? So there was a system to it, an order. It doesn't always have to be just awful. It can be a good thing. And that sentence right down there, the teacher went through the class systematically asking for homework. Just write down each row, there was an order, maybe like alphabetical order or something like that. But if it's a system to it, if it's orderly, done in a business-like way, we can call that systematically or systematic. The next one is vehemently. Vehemently, so it's with intense emotion. And I think I have a sentence here. She vehemently denied committing the crime. So it's anytime you show emotion, you can use vehemently. So maybe somebody hates another person vehemently, like they really don't like that person. So vehemently is an adverb, and it's used to describe adjectives or verbs. So in this way, when you're denying something, that's a verb. You're saying, no, I didn't do it. And if you vehemently deny, it's like you're emotional. Maybe you're raising your voice. You're pounding on the desk. Vehemently. The next one, bring this up a little bit more, get rid of that. The next one is, these two go together. Pope Francis and the Vatican. We haven't talked about this at all, but it was in the article. I might have paused for a second, but because the Catholic religion, Orthodox religion, and Islam, Muslim religion, those three religions are big in the Balkans. They're very popular. People, I'll use vehemently, people vehemently believe in their religion. So they're very passionate about it. They often show emotion, a lot to at least. Pope, let's bring this guy up here. And it is always a guy. Pope, this is the current one, Pope Francis. He is the current Bishop of Rome, head of the Catholic Church. So when you hear Christian, a type of Christian is Catholic, meaning they believe in like Jesus. The three major Western religions: Catholicism, Catholics; Judaism, people who are Jewish; Islam, people who are Muslim. Those are some of the words we use with it. They all, believe it or not, worship the same God. But Catholics, Christians, will do that big umbrella right there. Christians believe in Jesus. People who are Jewish, their religion doesn't really involve Jesus at all because it was started before Jesus as a historical figure. And then if you are Muslim, in the Quran, Jesus appears as a person named Isa, but is a prophet. But it's the Christians that believe Jesus is above, like right up there with God. And so Catholics are a type of Christian. It gets very confusing, right? So Catholics are a type of Christians, and their main person, like on earth, who they believe can do no wrong and is almost godlike, is the Pope. The current one, Pope Francis. And the Pope lives in the Vatican. You sometimes might hear the Vatican City. I have Google Maps right here. So let's do Pope Francis. Oh, calling for pictures today.
All right, we are ready for Community C. If you would like to have your spring picture taken, please head up to the cafeteria now. Community C, please head up to have your picture taken now.
There was a time when the people in the office would call like a classroom, hey, can you bring your community down? Can you bring your team down? Now they just interrupt everything. All right. What was I saying? Hopefully people were listening. The place where the Pope lives called the Vatican, or Vatican City. And it's the smallest country on earth, but it is totally surrounded, as I move out of here, completely. It's not in Rome. Vatican City is its own thing, but it is like surrounded by Rome, surrounded by Italy. So when you pull back so far, you can't even see it. I can't remember. It's hundreds of people that live in the Vatican, but they have their own currency and stuff like that. So Vatican City, Pope lives there. Now, really quickly, between Catholics and Orthodox, the Orthodox religion, we talk about that with Srebrenica. Orthodox, they're almost like Catholics, except they do not believe in the Pope. At one point, Orthodox and Catholics were together, and at some point, maybe like 1,000 years ago, they split off because they're like, nah, we don't believe the Pope is almost godlike, can't do any wrong. All right, so that's the difference. But they're both would be considered Christian, and in that area, you would also have people who are Muslim. They would not be considered Christian. If anybody has any other questions about religion, I can try to answer them. I'm not a religious expert, but that's my really quick, simplified way of explaining those three different religions. All right, the next one, I got to do a little something here to pull up this. Hang on. It's going to take a second. Screen share. It's not always easy. Go back to the other one. There it is. Almost done here, I guess. So we did Pope Francis and the Vatican at the same time. The next one is reluctant. So if you are reluctant to do something, it looks unwilling, holding back. And I will have a sentence with that, but we got to get to acknowledge first. And it's not exactly a true sentence. But if somebody is reluctant to do something, I mean, they'll do it. They just don't want to do it. So it's the act is being done since they don't want to do it. Maybe oftentimes in the morning, you are reluctant to get out of bed. Like on those days you actually get out of bed, like you get out of bed, you were just reluctant to do so. You didn't want to do it, grumbling, things like that. That is reluctant. Hey, guess what? During like snowstorms, I'm pretty reluctant to go out and shovel. I do it. I don't like to. I'll probably complain for about an hour before I do it, but reluctantly, I go out and shovel. The next one, let's bring this up a little bit bigger. The next one you can't see, so let me move this up. Interpreted. Interpreted. That's a hard word to say. Interpret. Interpreted. Interpreted. That means explaining it in a way. So you could have something written in French, right? And if you know French, you can interpret it into English. It's just a way of explaining. So hopefully when I talked about those 3-4 religions, hopefully I interpreted their way of life in a way that was pretty accurate. I did a lot of stereotyping there, and it's a little bit more nuanced, but interpret. So let's say your parents, right? I don't know. Your parents like, hey, maybe you have the day off. That would be great, right? Hey, clean up the kitchen, okay? At some point today, clean up the kitchen. And you interpret that as like cleaning the kitchen, the counters, putting away the food, whatever. But you didn't interpret it as also unloading the dishwasher, something like that. So you take somebody else's message and then you try to figure it out for yourself. So sometimes you can misinterpret, means you get it wrong. So what's the actual definition I have here for interpret? Yeah, explain the meaning of. I don't know. That's some of these definitions. I'm definitely not happy with the pictures, some of them. But if you look at that piece of artwork, I mean, to me, it just looks like a blob. But if someone is really good at interpreting art, they might say, no, that's not a blob. Look at that. That's a crab. Like you can see the claws right there. And it's blue because it's sad. Something like that. So we use interpret in English class all the time because you take some author's writing and then you interpret it. Like you make it your own and you try to figure out what that person was saying. That person is not around for you to ask. So you have to interpret it. Hopefully that helps. Next one, homogeneous. When we've talked about this in all the classes, homogeneous. If something is pretty much all the same, it's homogeneous or homogeneous. If it's not the same, it's heterogeneous. And it just depends on what you're talking about. But if we are talking about that article, Srebrenica, some people there wanted to make that land homogeneous. How did they go about doing it? They started killing people. Not a great way to make it homogeneous. And remember, they said, no, we didn't commit genocide. We only committed ethnic cleansing. We wanted them to leave if they happen to die on the way. So ethnic cleansing versus genocide. Talking about a whole bunch of deep stuff here, but hopefully that makes sense to you. Homogeneous. Homogeneous. Cool. I mean, of course, if you have any questions, let me know. Relevant is the next one. Relevant. So let me use this as an example. Even though Srebrenica happened 30 years ago, the Holocaust happened, I'm not good at math, 80 years ago, I think it is. It's still relevant today. It still matters. You can still connect it in some way because of what's going on in Ukraine. So if something is relevant, it's closely related to something you are doing. So what would not be relevant? How about when you are talking about going to high school next year, and then the person would ask you like, oh, hey, what classes did you take in the first grade? What kind of things did you learn in the first grade? That's not relevant. That's like too long ago. But like if you were in, if you did really well in the 8th grade, you get a bunch of A's, they might say, well, that would be relevant to high school. If you did well in middle school, you probably will do well here. So we'll put you like in an honors class or something like that. So what you did in first grade really isn't relevant to high school, but the 8th grade is. Hopefully that makes sense. Relevant. I think I'm doing a pretty good job interpreting some of these definitions. Hopefully people are listening. I'd give myself an A so far. I could mess it up pretty badly here in a minute. Perpetrators. Look at the definition. A person who carries out a harmful, illegal, or immoral act. So anytime you hear perpetrator, it's a bad thing. So the perpetrators of the Holocaust, the people who caused it, I guess we could just kind of all lump them together and say Nazis, right? Perpetrators. There was something in the news recently. I think maybe I won't say it just in case somebody knows, because it was like local news and somebody died. But like perpetrator, it's just somebody who committed a crime. Maybe somebody. What if we had a teacher in the school and they were stealing money somehow? I don't know how they would do it, but they were stealing money. Well, we would call them the perpetrator, the one who stole the money, the perpetrator. All right, next one, Srebrenica. Srebrenica. We have been talking all about the fact that this is a genocide that's known, so it's called Srebrenica. But did you know it's actually a town in Bosnia? So the definition, Bosnian town where over 7,000 unarmed Muslims were executed. 1995. The number they put it at was like 7,000. So not good. The next one, like we're down to 2. Okay, so hopefully that's not too bad. Lots and lots of information coming at you over these last 15 minutes. The next one is acknowledge. So you admit something, you recognize it. It's a fancy way to say you admit something. And here I have a sentence. When we talk about the Armenian genocide, remember that was perpetrated can be a verb too. That was perpetrated by Turkish people. Of course, not all Turkish people were involved, but most of if we stereotype, they were Turkish people and they were killing Armenians. Again, we'll talk about how that is related to religion. Turks, they're Muslim. Armenians, they're Christian. A lot of times, genocides have something to do with religion. Not all the time. Sometimes, though. So this is my sentence here. The Turks are reluctant to acknowledge the genocide. Excuse me. And that's not entirely accurate, because if you're reluctant to do something, you do it, but you don't want to. So far, Turkey has never even acknowledged that a genocide took place. So that sentence is not accurate, but it's using 2 of our vocabulary words. Maybe some Turkish people have, but the Turkish government has never officially admitted or recognized or acknowledged that that took place, that genocide took place. And the last one, this is pretty straightforward. Reparations. Reparations, this is payment for damages after a war. Payment for damages after a war. You might hear that, reparations, when you're talking about World War I. World War I. After World War I, guess who lost? Germany. I'm simplifying these things, but Germany lost. And then basically, like the UK, England, and France said to Germany, guess what? You have to pay for all this stuff. Reparations. You have to pay for all this stuff. But guess what? When they paid for all that stuff, the world economy tanked. Guess what you have? You got the Great Depression. Guess what? You could argue, because the Great Depression happened, World War II happened. They're all connected. World War I, Great Depression, World War II, Cold War, Vietnam. A lot of things connected. A lot of the wars are connected. All right, that's it for today. That's a lot of stuff. You know what I would consider? Maybe asking you to rewatch this video. There's so many good nuggets of information in here. I'm sure that you will, right? You're going to rewatch this video. You're going to learn a lot of stuff. All right.